What is up, YouTube? It's your girl Evelyn, and I am back with the episode 7 recap of the L Word Generation Q. I will be spoiling the entire episode, so as always, proceed with caution. Tina, Bet, and Shane are having brunch at Dana's, but unfortunately, this meeting of the OGs is one short. Despite Bet's numerous apologies to Alice for not telling her about the Felicity affair, Alice is still peeved and is a no-show. Shane confesses to the girls that she's a little freaked out about an upcoming doctor's appointment with Chiara to hear their baby's heartbeat for the first time. This leads Bet and Tina down memory lane, and they reminisce about the first time they heard Angie's heartbeat. During this sentimental moment, Bet reaches over and grabs Tina's hand, and while the gesture is sweet and clearly inadvertent, Tina is visibly uncomfortable and they awkwardly let go. Tina then asks Bet if they could have dinner that evening, just the two of them. Bet plays it cool, but it's clear she's excited, and she even insists Tina come to the house so she can prepare a lovely dinner for them. Tina's like, sure, whatever, then excuses herself to answer a call from her yet-to-be-seen boo thang, Carrie. Not long after, Bet meets up with Danny for a little caffeine and campaign strategy. Thanks to intel from a CBS insider, Danny is convinced that Bet's opponent, Jeff Milner, will soon launch a negative attack campaign against Bet in the aftermath of Pushgate. Bet seems unfazed by the news, probably because she's just a few hours away from making sweet, sweet love to her baby's mama. Danny wants to prepare a counterattack ad, just in case, but Bet's like, girl, chill. Then, in a panty-dampening display of top energy, Danny takes the initiative and orders Bet's coffee for her. And although Bet is still enthusiastically anticipating Tina Bowl 2020, Miss Porter eyes Danny like she's contemplating renewing her PBU membership. Bet is putting the finishing touches on a homemade dinner for herself and Tina while working on her pre-sex buzz. And in my opinion, there are few things more charming than Bet Porter in love, and I've missed seeing this side of her. As BB&T chat about Angie, Tina remarks that she's begun house hunting in LA so that she can spend more time with Angie during the hiatus. Bet immediately tells Tina not to bother and that she's welcome to stay at Chateau Porter. Tina can see the gleam in Bet's eye and quickly clarifies. She tells Bet that her boo thang Carrie proposed last week, and Tina said yes. Jennifer Beals then gives us all a masterclass in acting as a tortured Bet puts on a happy face while trying her hardest not to break down in front of Tina. Tina then plunges the knife in even deeper by suggesting that Bet, Tina, and Carrie should all tell Angelica the great news together. Tina's gone and Bet is in an emergency meeting with PR beast Danny. Turns out Danny was right and Milner released a negative attack campaign against Bet. Danny double downs on her insistence that they counter with a negative ad of their own, but Bet refuses, saying, I told you I have morals and standards, and if you think I'm gonna let this homophobic asshole take me down with this bullshit, you really don't know me at all. Danny then looks at Bet like this, and while Bet pours her a whiskey, she contemplates submitting her own application to the PBU. Alice begins the episode in throuple bliss as she, Nat, and Gigi nail down their morning routine. The throuple even have an adorable fight about watching TV shows together. At work, Alice's good mood soon turns sour as a scheduled meeting with network execs doesn't quite go to plan. Alice had hoped to oust network infiltrator Drew from her show once and for all, but instead she learns that her show is on the bubble due to low ratings and might not be renewed. The network bigwig instructs her to work with Drew to create some catchy viral content. After the meeting, Drew gives Alice a pep talk of sorts. She still doesn't particularly like him, but now that she's out of options, she's willing to try things his way. Gigi and Nat are home alone, and after putting the kids to bed, they begin discussing old relationship wounds, but this time it doesn't devolve into a fight. They both readily admit to regretting the breakup of their marriage and the role each of them played in it. And not long after, they start doing this, which inevitably leads to this. Alice is back home and ready to vent to her lady lovers about her crappy day. She walks into the bedroom and finds Gigi and Nat together. They invite her into the fold, but something about the scene just doesn't sit right with Alice, leaving her feeling some type of way. She tells Gigi and Nat this isn't what she had in mind, and pieces out. Alice shows up to Shane's place for a good old-fashioned best friend pick-me-up, and is surprised and annoyed to find Bet is also there. After some initial friction, Alice and Bet make up and eventually hug it out. Also, props to Shane for giving Alice the "I told you so" in the nicest way possible. A few days later, Alice is meeting with Nat and Gigi at a restaurant. The sister ex-wives apologize to Alice and want her to know they've spent the last several days together working through their issues, and they're in a good place now and ready to resume the throuple. Alice is like, then slams the chair into the table like the petty queen we stan. Shane is at the doctor's office with Chiara, and they are about to hear their baby's heartbeat for the first time. I have to say, in the history of the L Word, I don't know if I've ever seen Shane this freaked out about anything before. As they listen to the baby's heartbeat, Chiara is overcome with emotion and tears fill her eyes. Shane is overcome with nothing. She emotionally fakes her way through the rest of the appointment, but later, while going over the books with Tess, her true feelings spill out. She confesses to Tess that she didn't feel anything while listening to her baby's heartbeat, and she's afraid because she doesn't know what she's doing. Tess suggests she share those feelings with Chiara, but Shane doesn't see the point because her feelings are nothing new. Also, shout out to our girl Tess for being 3 days sober and back in meetings. Miss Chiara, I woke up like this Knowles, is in the process of getting stood up by Shane. When some of the restaurant's patrons begin recognizing her, she angrily stomps out, only to be met by an apologetic Shane. Shane tells Q that she didn't feel anything while listening to the baby's heartbeat, and it terrified her. Instead of shaming Shane for not feeling anything, Chiara instead praises her for being open and honest, and reassures Shane that however she feels is perfectly fine. Sophie is lathering up in the shower while Danny is getting ready for work. Sophie tries to catch Danny's attention, but Danny is already in PR beast mode and barely notices her. After Danny leaves the bathroom, Finley walks in and immediately notices Sophie's hot, naked, soapy body. Finley gives Sophie the validation that Danny failed to, and Sophie finishes her shower with a smile on her face. It's breakfast time and Danny's phone is glued to her ear. Sophie is serving breakfast when she receives some alarming news. Her grandmother has fallen and is in the hospital with a serious head injury. Sophie manages to keep it together, and when Danny offers to take her to the hospital, Sophie declines, citing Danny's busy work schedule. At the hospital, Sophie puts on a strong front for her worried mother and sister, but the moment she steps outside of her grandmother's hospital room, she loses it. Finley shows up with an armful of Funyuns and comforts Sophie, once again stepping into a role left unfilled by Danny. Sophie's grandmother is in surgery and Finley is keeping Sophie company in the waiting room. Sophie's annoyed that Danny hasn't shown up, although Finley reminds her that she told Danny not to come. Sophie then shares a memory of her grandmother that moves her to tears. Finley asks Sophie if she'd like to pray, which, if you've been following Finley's storyline this season, is a pretty big deal for her. The two bros then hold hands and pray together. Danny's workday is finally done, and when she arrives home, she finds Finley rooting through her closet searching for clothes for Sophie, who's yet to leave the hospital. Finley then calls Danny out for not being there for Sophie, and Danny comes up with a list of excuses, to which Finley responds, "Dude, it's her grandma. Even I knew to be there." To which Danny testily replies, "Yeah, you should be there. Your life is nothing like mine. Our circumstances are different." "Yeah, I'm not her fiance."
Period.
After being dragged by Finley, Danny has finally arrived at the hospital. Within seconds, Danny's cell phone goes off, and not long after, she hightails it to Bet's. After Danny's departure, Finley cozies up to Sophie, getting that much closer to becoming Danny's full-time replacement. It's late and Sophie is making Finley leave the hospital. And although Finley comes up with every excuse under the sun to stay, Sophie is adamant. Finley then tells Sophie she loves her, and Sophie tells Finley the same thing. But as Finley walks away, Sophie grabs her hand and yeah. The next day, Sophie is chatting with her sister and confesses to kissing Finley. She's sure it won't happen again and therefore doesn't see the need to tell Danny. Sophie's sister gives her a "you sure about that" look, and Sophie ends the episode looking ambivalent, to say the least. Micah is back this week and his mother Grace is in town for a visit. Mama G is an avid consumer of marijuana, particularly in its edible form, which I only mention because the show references her pot usage ad nauseum for literally no reason that I could ascertain. Micah introduces Grace to Jose and the three of them have lunch together. Things start off well, but quickly become uncomfortable when Grace began sharing stories about Micah when he was, quote-unquote, a little girl, and showing Jose Micah's baby pictures. Micah snaps at her for doing what she always does and flees the restaurant. Jose goes after him and reassures him that he sees Micah for the man he is. Later that evening, Grace goes to Micah and apologizes. Although Micah accepts the apology, he doesn't quite let her off the hook until she promises to actively do better going forward. She also tells Micah that it's obvious what he and Jose have is real, and she thinks Micah should tell Jose that he loves him. And that is all for the recap. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am so looking forward to next week's season finale, and I have a little surprise for you guys next video, so make sure you watch and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next week.